Hi guys, it's a pleasure to have you with me. Today I want to show you a bit of my process on my latest painting titled Free Spirit. So I've sketched a few horses in the past, but I've never actually painted one, and it certainly had its challenges. I was going for a sense of movement within the horse, and I wanted certain elements to really jump out at the viewer. Oh, and of course I wanted a really dynamic, abstract background because that's just me. So let's get stuck in. I'm working with oil paints on a 24 by 36 inch oil primed Belgium linen canvas, and I'm using a photo reference which I purchased online. I'm trying a different method with this piece. I'm using burnt umber, which has been thinned down with odourless mineral spirit to map out my basic values and composition. This is a really common technique with painting. Usually the stark white canvas is covered in thin paints, usually burnt umber or burnt sienna, or even a cool colour, so the artist has a mid-tone to work with. The canvas usually sits and dries, then the artist is ready to block in some colour. I also like to work this way, but today I decided to block in the entire horse in burnt umber, so I have a nice tonal underpainting to play around with afterwards. Now, this isn't the only way to start a painting, but I found this a great way to get a real feel for the painting before committing to detail, and it's a fantastic way to map out where I want my tones. I'm also using an old t-shirt and paper towel to wipe away the paint for where I want the highlighted areas. Because the paint is thinned down with mineral spirits and I've used an earthy colour with a touch of fast drying medium, this first layer will be dry and ready for me to add the next layer, usually after a day or so. On my second layer, I'm using less mineral spirit with a drop of medium. I still want the paint to flow and blend smoothly between colours on the canvas. This layer is still very loose and gestural, and I'm able to work on the entire painting in one sitting. I pay special attention to the horse's face, and especially the eyes. I want the detail of this to be a strong focus of the painting. This horse is far from white, and the only time I use titanium white straight out of the tube is when the paint on the canvas is already wet. I do a lot of colour mixing on the canvas, as well as using my wooden palette and glass palette. The body itself is compiled full of cool and warm variations, which makes for an interesting piece. I'm picking out a sort of mid-tone in these areas. For my cool colours, I'm using ultramarine blue with titanium white, and my warmer colours are mixed with yellow ochre, cadmium yellow and titanium white. These paint mixes are adjusted accordingly. My work is loose and I only choose details in areas where relevant. I want to suggest what's going on. For example, in the horse's tail, I want a sense of movement, and I want to almost hint and show this in the simplest way possible. The viewer's minds will be able to fill in the details. On my next layer, the paint is progressively thicker, especially in my lighter areas of the painting. I'm careful not to overblend too. I'm picking out certain areas that I think need to have soft transitions. I love playing around with soft and hard edges. I also love playing around with light and contrast. I know that I want a predominantly darker background so that my subject really stands out. In this layer, I want some vibrant colours in the background that will be hinted later on in the painting. I'm also focusing my efforts and paying close attention to where I want my light source to come from. I've also started to slow down to build up thick paint layers of some detail on the subject. I now use my small brushes to work some finer details into the hair, and I can blend this into the wet backgrounds to create a sense of depth and atmosphere. Once the paint is dry, I go back for a final layer on the head. I want to create detail without going overboard with it. I use my finger and a blending brush to really smooth out parts where I think are relevant. For example, I want a blended area up the horse's muzzle. The hair on the horse gets the same treatment. I'm following the direction of the wavy patterns that disappear into the background and blending between certain brush strokes to really get that feeling of movement. I use different brushes to create a variety of effects. I've kept the legs really loose on this painting, 2 layers only. Now, I'm not lazy, I just think it's interesting to have a painting that kind of looks half finished in certain areas. I don't think it's necessary to render every inch of the painting. I mean, you can do, of course, but I'm not into that sort of thing. I want a sense of mist in the areas of the hooves. A simple mix of ultramarine blue, ultramarine violet and titanium white is added, and I can create wispy movements with my blending brush. Before we get into my last layer, I just wanted to show you how I add my medium into my paints. I roughly use an equal measure of liquid fine detail throughout every layer of the painting. It's very fluid and I can just add a drop into each paint pile. I don't need much, and then I mix up some piles that get modified throughout each session. This paint for my final layer contains just a drop of medium and no mineral spirits. I want to emphasize certain areas within the horse's body. This is also where my warm and cool colours are really enhanced with thick paint. I'm also choosing areas that need to be softened. I'm using my little finger for some of those effects and keeping some areas with hard edges, which makes for an interesting piece. When I work from photos, I aim to put my own artistic flair and soul into the painting, and I'm super happy with the way this one came out. So there you have it, a white horse that isn't exactly white. There are so many different approaches to oil painting, and this so happens to be mine. But I'm always open to the possibility of learning and advancing my techniques. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell and like and comment. It all goes a long way. It does really help me very much. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now. Bye bye.